Hello, my name is Linda Much, and I'm here with my mentor friend, Professor Dennie Briggs, and we're going to have a conversation today about channeling and receiving channeled information in the dream state. Now, this is Tuesday, May the 8th, 2012, and previously, Dennie and I have had a couple of conversations just to catch up historically. We've been friends and worked together on different projects over the years. And it came to light that when Dennie's partner, who has since passed, was still alive, that he inspired me and learned that I had recently learned how to channel. And at that time, he was sick and he knew he was not to be in this world much longer. And he asked me if I would channel him, quote unquote, when Dennie was ready. And Dennie, over the years, was hesitant to be open to this type of spiritual, what I call spiritual growth. And so only a few years ago, when was it, Dennie? About a year ago? Dennie and I were together for one of our wonderful lunches and conversations, and he shared that he'd been having dreams about John, his departed partner, who had been gone for 15 years. And in our discussion, we discovered, to our surprise, our mutual surprise, that perhaps this was a way of channeling and receiving information in a different venue than we had experienced before. At least that I had experienced, and of course this was new to Dennie. So we continued to have ongoing conversations about what this might mean and try to sort out what it might mean. And so we've written an article about it, and now we're having a follow-up conversation. And what's happened since then is Dennie's brother, Bob, right, Robert or Bob, has passed on. And Dennie, as I understand it, has begun to dream about his brother. So I'm going to ask you, Dennie, to start there and say, when did you start dreaming about your brother?
Well, I've had dreams about him, you know, on and off for several years, and quite regularly, but not as regularly as with John.
Mm-hmm.
But there was about, I would say about a month after he died, I had some dreams about him, and now he's coming back into dream life maybe once or twice a week.
So let me ask you this. He's come back. You dreamt about him over the years, of course. Many of us do dream of people in our lives.
Right.
And then he died, and immediately after his death, you didn't have any dreams about him for about a month.
Mm.
So now you're dreaming about him once or twice a week. So tell me, is there a difference at all in the way the dreams are now that he's gone than when he was alive?
Well, I've kept track of a lot of those dreams. I'd have to go back and have a look at them and see what they're like. But the interesting thing in these dreams, since he's died, he's almost always younger. He's a child, he's an adolescent, right? He's really retreated far back. And I'm watching him grow up again.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that I've learned, and having been to some workshops, um, I remember I was in a workshop with Melchizedek, and it was about a different type of meditation. And he shared that his experiences were that when someone whom he knew died, when they dreamt about him, they always looked about the age 30. They never looked old, and in the dream state or in a channeling environment, the deceased appeared younger to the family member or the friend. When I do readings where people ask about departed persons, I don't get any visual. I just get information. Um, and I get information from the deceased person to convey to the person in front of me. So it's not unusual to get them at about the age 30, and that's been consistent with the information I've gleaned over the years. But there again, you are quite unique, because this is the first time I've heard that someone's dreamt of someone who's departed who you see as a child getting older. So does it go back and forth? Do you dream of him when he's a 10 or 12-year-old and then maybe a 18-year-old and then a 5-year-old? Is that what happens? It bounces
Yes,
back
it
and forth?
bounces back and forth.
So the age of the departed brother is showing you himself in. Now, this is where the psychologist may come in and say, you're recreating a joyful experience with your brother because you miss him. You see? Or this is your subconscious working. And that's an interest to me. I don't disregard any aspect of this whole arena, because, you know, psychologists and psychiatrists have spoken about people who have near-death experiences, and they describe, and I've read about that, psychiatrists will define a near-death experience as what happens to the brain, and that you can create wonderful things that you imagine, as opposed to going to a light and having a near-death experience that's real to you, and coming back and being able to talk about it. Well, now that's been documented many, many times that people have this experience. So what do you think about it? Do you think this dreaming about your brother is a joyful recall, if you will, of his childhood? Like going down memory lane, if you will?
Well, I don't know. I've kept track of all these dreams. I'd have to go back and have a look at them. I don't recall just offhand. Um, what interests me about my brother is, you know, he was a firm believer in reincarnation, you know, almost extremely so. Um, he followed all the etiquette of reincarnation with guides and spirits and
Right.
all that sort of thing. He wouldn't deviate an inch from the
So Bob
traditional.
was a true believer in reincarnation,
Right.
and I remembered he sent me some tapes on John Edwards. One could say he was not obsessed, but he was very firm in his belief in that.
Almost obsessed.
Almost obsessed, and would not budge from that, meaning he wouldn't be open to any other explanation,
Right.
like it ends here and it stops here and you're full of baloney.
And he put up with much of his life, which was very unpleasant, you know, with the idea that he was going to have a next life and things were going to be different.
Different meaning better.
Better.
So he was planning on living a next life, a
Right.
better life,
Right.
and that was met with, I'm sure, sarcasm, or at least, if not outright being joked about it.
Well, he wasn't able to tell many people or discuss it. Certainly not with anyone in my family.
Right.
So I've been waiting, you see, for him to make a contact and see what's going to happen. I've been waiting with
So you're waiting with anticipation
right.
that your deceased brother, who so totally believed in reincarnation, which is not where you are in particular, you're still somewhat skeptical about the whole thing. Is that correct? Okay. So even with you and his brother, he still couldn't share this with applause from his family members. This was very skeptical, and this was his thing. Okay. So now you're waiting to see if, now that he's, as we say, crossed over, you're waiting to see whether your brother